Hello, I'm Nicholas Rogulski, and I'm part of Group 38, who created the Chasing Shadows animation. This presentation is going to go over an overview of my contributions, technical implementation that I led, and any changes that I made since week 12. I created the technical foundation for Joe's motion systems and any supporting systems, which include the integration for IK, and also I sourced and purchased the various high-fidelity environmental assets that I'll list momentarily. On the practical side, I worked on the chase and resolution scene, which is the second half of the animation, which is around 35 seconds worth of sequencing, and also arranged the audio tracks and also curated the post-processing stack using Unity's inbuilt V1 stack. So the assets that I sourced are the downtown, which is used at the chase park, that I used for the resolution. Technical implementation that I led is how the shadow works. It uses the Unity's shadow casting mode, and this allows us to have two characters. We have set Joe's renderer as shadow casting mode off, and also vice versa. Joe's shadow has its renderer set to shadow only. Then on for the inverse kinematics, which is using Biped IK, Lookat IK, and Grounded Biped IK provided by the Final IK plugin that we used. The Biped IK and Lookat IK, they have default targets they look at. For the Grounded Biped, which is to do with keeping feet planted on the ground. For the motion system that I created, it's an internal motion clip system that just allows us to easily read and edit the motion of the characters, integrated with the spline rather than using the raw Unity transform keyframes. It's just nicer, easier, and simpler. Nothing revolutionary. Whilst that is very useful for in-place movement, it's also valuable to have root motion animation. And the way we implemented this into our animation is by making the motion clips override the root position once the root motion animation is complete, which then provides us with a expected start point and end point and facing point. Not perfect, as there are limitations with alignment, but it estimates where Joe should be. My contributions since week 12 have been iterating on and fixing the chase scene and creating the resolution scene. I also worked on the processing to get it on par with a film-like feel. The main things were we wanted to get a fix for the shimmering that was happening on the shadow edges of Joe, and this is through controversially in gaming TAAs because it results in a lot of temporal blurring. However, for the animation, it's well suited. However, we also added CAS, which then allows us to sharpen this image a little bit as well after a lot of the blurring. Also, we added the ACES tone mapping, industry standard tone mapping that they use in films. And on the chase scene itself, as an example of what we did for the post processing, the feel to be warm highlights and cooler shadows, which is by lift gamma gain with orangey hues for highlights and bluey shadows, which provides this sunset, moody, a little bit less comfortable feel. And then also to get that surreal, bit gritty feel, we added contrast, a bit more saturation, white balanced the scene, a bit less whitewashed, and then also added a vignette. And so we went from Unity's inbuilt on the left, and then with After is how it looked like.
Hello, this is Cyrus. Today I'll be talking about my contributions as well as technical choices regarding the animation Chasing Shadows. So starting with contributions, as previously mentioned, essentially it stayed the same. What I did for preparing for the animation, I was looking for free assets, specifically regarding environments Joe could stand in, as well as also looking for props we could use. Admittedly, I didn't use as many as I intended, like the cars, but I did use some like an iPhone. I also looked for animations, like compiling what I thought would be useful, compiling them all into a Miro, as well as also compiling the other assets I found into that same Miro. Animation-wise, I made a rough version of the first act and also pretty much completed the monotonous life cycle, handling the post-processing and animation for that segment. And I also handled the visual representation of the storyboard, as can be seen here. As for technical choices regarding the animation, the biggest elephant in the room, in my opinion, is definitely just the choice of not including any dynamic camera angles within Monotonous Life. Now, whether it's for better or worse, to be honest, I'm really not sure at this point. The Monotonous Life cycle, I intentionally chose not to put any moving camera shots. So pretty much all the shots are, maybe they're at a dynamic angle, like with quotation marks, but they definitely aren't like moving in any way or form. The reason why I chose this was to really sell the point that, well, it's really just make them look boring compared to the other scenes. So compared to like maybe The Change, which is where the camera actually starts moving, the camera work is like just boring. It's just standing still, which is really just meant to sell the whole point that the Monotonous Life cycle is just Joe's boring life and a boring life cycle. And the fact that it just starts moving specifically at The Change is meant to just convey that, yeah, Joe does start considering things around then. The technical thing I chose was regarding the inverse kinematics. Honestly, I kind of did this early on, but I mean, I decided to keep it, but improve it. With inverse kinematics, I did some basic IK pub, like literally like tutorial work inverse kinematics by making just separate objects, moving said objects to manipulate Joe's movement. But compared to the earlier animation, obviously the earlier animation version, it looked a lot more stiff because there wasn't a hint in it. So I'll probably go into this when I talk about differences between week 12 and now, but the main difference is that Joe's movement here is actually natural due to the inclusion of a hint. I also added some post-processing to the scenes, specifically this blue tint. I was kind of inspired by like that winter going to school kind of feel where it's like really cold, or even just going to uni. Like, not that like uni itself is depressing, but like, you know, it's a cold day, everything just feels blue. That's kind of what I was going for. The way I did it was using the global post-processing with these settings. The immersive shots. Again, something I'll probably go into when talking about the differences within the animation from week 12 to week 14. The main difference you'll see in the shots is that there are just other people in the shots now. It's no longer just Joe in a empty space. Rather, it's Joe and some other people just going about their day, doing their own thing. For some shots I was actually trying to go for maybe giving the audience something that seems more interesting in Joe, just to drive home the point that Joe's life's so boring. Specifically this scene where you see the guy just minding his own business and then his friend comes and he waves, and then Joe's just a background character. Again, I was just trying to drive home the point that like Joe's life is so boring. He really is just literally just an NPC, not even worth following.